Is there really an evidence-based approach to boost your immune system and reduce the risk of the coronavirus? I'm Dr. Brett Scher, the medical director at dietdoctor.com, and you probably know Diet Doctor as the leading low-carb and ketogenic website. And you may be wondering, well, what does that have to do with coronavirus? Well, one of the things we pride ourselves on at Diet Doctor is really trying to cut through the hyperbole, cut through the fantastic media claims, and talk about what the science really shows as it relates to our health. And that's why we feel a responsibility to address what's going on in the world right now with a coronavirus epidemic. So, a couple of things. We have 2 posts recently that have been put up on our website. I encourage you to go to dietdoctor.com to read these. The first, written by Ann Mullins, was 6 tips for low-carb coronavirus preparedness. And the really good tips, about adopting social distancing. I'm sure you've heard that and hopefully are implementing that. But also how to stock your fridge with low-carb options. So many people are going to the stores and buying the pastas and the crackers and the dried goods that basically last forever. But eggs can last for 5 weeks in the fridge. Heavy cream and cheese and some longer life vegetables, things like broccoli and cauliflower, can last for a few weeks if stored correctly. And of course, meats and fish and butter you can store in the fridge, you can store in the freezer. So this doesn't have to be a time for you to abandon a low-carb lifestyle and stock up on all the high-carb foods. With enough preparation and enough thought, you really can stick with a low-carb lifestyle, eat healthily even during this period of a self-quarantine or sheltering in place and promoting social isolation. So I encourage you to read Ann Mullins' posts. She goes on to talk about stocking the pantry with nuts and nut flours. Make sure you have plenty of that. Make sure you're taking a look at all the expiration dates and that you have all your other personal essentials too, like coffee and tea. That's a big one. I know a lot of people can't live without that one, but take a look at Ann Mullins' post. I think you'll find it helpful. Then there's a second post, which I wrote about boosting your immune system to fight the coronavirus. We've seen fantastical claims on what vitamin C can do, about what silver nanoparticles can do, what essential oils can do. But what does the evidence really show? And I got to be honest, this is a tough one because our immune system isn't just one thing. Our immune system is this intricate system where everything sort of plays together, and it has to do with our baseline health, and it has to do with so many different factors that interplay on each other. It's hard to test in a experimental study. What we want to know is, does something reduce your risk of getting an infection? Well, those studies are few and far between. The more common study we have are those that look at what does it do to your B cell function or your T cell function or your macrophages or different specific segments of your immune system. And those are kind of hard to translate. But obviously we have to address low carb nutrition. And does that affect your immune system? And we don't really have any high quality human data to say that eating low carb or eating keto is going to reduce your risk of getting the coronavirus. That does not exist. Now, there was a recent study in mice that showed a keto diet reduced their risk of getting influenza. Okay, well, what does that mean for humans and what does that mean for coronavirus? So there are a couple jumps in there. But certainly, what do you have to lose? You have a lot to gain, because one thing we do know about the people who are having complications, severe complications from coronavirus, is there are people with type 2 diabetes, potentially those with higher hemoglobin A1Cs, so with higher blood sugars. And we know from other data, whether it's post-surgical infections or just diabetic foot ulcers, that the higher the blood sugar, the higher the infection risk and the lower the chance of recovering from infections. So putting all that together, it makes sense that you want a diet, you want a lifestyle that's going to keep your blood sugar low, keep your blood sugar steady. Again, it's not proven that that's going to reduce your complications from coronavirus, but that I think is a fairly logical jump. And that's where a low-carb or keto diet really does fit in, because it really does help lower those blood sugar spikes and keep the blood sugar on a lower steady level and reduce the incidence of type 2 diabetes. So to me, that makes a lot of sense, even if we can't say we have proof that it's going to improve anything about the coronavirus. And then, of course, in this post, I talk about the basics, the hand washing, not smoking because of the lung complications, getting adequate sleep, There are actually studies showing that you're more prone to infection risks with less than 7 hours of sleep, certainly less than 5 hours of sleep. And one night likely isn't going to do it. But if it adds up over time, then you might be at higher risk. And one of the things that impacts sleep the most is the blue light from our devices. And if we're all shut in and locked at home, one thing we're doing more of is more tablets, more phones, more computers. So get those blue blocking glasses on, or look for other activities that don't involve tech. This is a great opportunity to read books, not ebooks, but read books. I can't get groceries from Amazon anymore because they're all out, but I can get plenty of books, and I'm ordering them to make sure I have plenty to read. Also, jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles. We're doing so many jigsaw puzzles with our kids, and they love them. It's a great evening activity, so I highly recommend those. I also talk about exercise. So exercise is a great one because there's studies that show that long-term exercise can improve immune function and your decreased risk of infections. Now, those are observational trials. They have confounding variables, but here's the kicker. There's enough to suggest that you shouldn't try long duration, greater than an hour and a half, or high intensity exercise acutely, because that may acutely decrease your immune system. Also, athletes who overtrain are at a higher risk of infection. So I encourage people to get outside, be active, do moderate exercise, but avoid the high intensity interval training, certainly if you're new to it. And if you already do it, maybe bring it down a notch just to help reduce that risk of suppressing your immune system temporarily. Of course, stress management's a big one, and also drinking alcohol in moderation. A lot of people are turning to alcohol to sort of deal with the frustration and the stress, and I get that. I've had a few extra scotches myself lately, but in moderation. There's plenty of evidence out there that heavy drinking can suppress the immune system and increase risk of infections. Then we also have a whole section on supplements. And again, this is a tough one because when you're measuring the effect of a supplement, are you talking about the specific part of your immune system, or you're talking about decreased risk of infection? So vitamin C is the big one. Vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. At 2,000 milligrams or less, there's likely no danger to taking it. So I recommend people take up to 2,000 milligrams a day to help reduce your risk of infection, especially in a time like this. There's no high-quality proven data, but there's some evidence that giving IV vitamin C to septic patients can reduce their risk. There is some observational studies showing fewer infections with higher dose vitamin C. And for something like this, where there's really no significant risk at the 2,000 milligram dose, I think it's probably worth it. And I certainly do it and recommend it to my family. The other is vitamin D. There actually is a large meta-analysis on studies on vitamin D that showed supplementing did slightly reduce the risk of infection, most prominently in those who are low on their vitamin D level. So if you are low, now's the chance to get that level up, or now's the time, I should say, to get that level up. So supplement, you can supplement with 2,000 international units. Check with your doctor, though, to maybe check blood tests to make sure you're getting in the right range. But more important than supplementing is getting outside, getting sunlight. The most effective way to get vitamin D is through skin conversion. And at a time like this, being outside and getting some fresh air is so important when we're stuck inside a lot. Just remember not to try and get so much sun exposure that you burn in the winter. That's a little less of a concern, but still can be a concern. So you got to balance the vitamin D with the burning and the skin cancer. So try, if the sun is shining, if it's cooperating where you are, try and get outside and expose a large part of your body to sun for about 15 minutes. It can help with the vitamin D, and again, at very little cost. Other things like zinc may be helpful. Just make sure you avoid the intranasal because that's associated with potential for loss of smell. And that's a great example of saying, oh, what's the harm? It's just zinc, just take it. But surprisingly and unexpectedly, there was that complication of people taking the intranasal form and having loss of smell, which is a pretty severe complication. So if you're going to take zinc, take it orally and less than, 40 milligrams? Yeah, 40 milligrams per day. And that also may be beneficial. There's some evidence that says that reduces the duration of a cold. Again, how to translate that to coronavirus is unknown. But if we're looking for something, things like turmeric, come on, add it to your food. What's the harm there? It's a good tasting spice. That might be worthwhile too, even if there's not great evidence that it reduces infection. If you're taking blood thinners though, be cautious about that. Talk to your doctor. Same for garlic. I love garlic. My wife hates it though, so I got to be careful about adding it to too much food. But if there's any chance it's going to help and I like the taste, why not? It's an interesting question about the whole sort of risk benefit ratio. So anyway, I could go on about some more detail, but check the post at dietdoctor.com. One of my favorite parts was the part about chicken soup. There actually are some studies, and I didn't know this. I thought it was just an old wives' tale, Jewish grandma's tale, whatever you want to call it. But there is some studies that, one study showed that chicken soup inhibited neutrophil migration. Now, does that mean decreased infections? Who knows, right? But we've got some great bone broth and soup recipes on our website that you might want to check out. If nothing else, it's a wonderful, tasty, comforting food. And I think that's worth a lot, whether it helps your immune system or not. So what do we take away from all this? Look, this is a stressful time. No question about it. Stressful time for all of us. And we're looking for answers. We're looking for things we can do. Hopefully some of these tips will help you sort of cut through some of the evidence that may or may not exist about helping with the coronavirus and boosting our immune system. The key is be healthy, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, look out for the elderly and the infirm, do your part to help flatten the curve, and do your part to help your neighbor if you can. Be safe, be well. We're going to get through this. And we look forward to giving you more information here at dietdoctor.com. Thanks a lot.